Hi, welcome back for spring 2021. Hope you had a great vacation, great winter break, and hope you're ready to get started again on a new semester. So, as most of you know, or you should know, I want to make sure you know, the first couple weeks of the semester here are remote completely. We don't have any in-person classes or labs until February. So, today being the first day of the semester, typically what we do, and we're going to do the same now, is we just go over the syllabus, make sure everybody knows what's going on. And then if you have questions, obviously you can't ask them to me personally, so you'll have to email them, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to bring up the syllabus. So get rid of the video here and show you what I've got. Let's see, spring 2021 here. And I'll just pick OB, which this should be the same no matter which lab you're in. Doesn't make any difference. The only difference in the syllabus for this lab as opposed to another one is the section number here. So if you're in the night one, it's 5B, so everything else is the same. So we'll just go down through the list and talk about it and make sure everybody understands what's going on this semester. It'll be a little strange for the first couple weeks, and then kind of normal what you're used to for the rest of the semester. We hope. Always the possibility that things will change or that we'll get shut down and sent back home, sent remote again, but hopefully not. So most of you know me. I look through the roster. There might be one or two that I have not had in class before, but I'll just go over it as if you don't know me. So most people call me Bob, and my direct phone number right here, 270-2634. If I'm not in my office, which is pretty much always the case, voicemail that you leave will go into my email, and I can listen to it from anywhere. When we are in session and having in-person classes, I'll be in my office Monday, Tuesday, in between the morning and afternoon class here, and then after the afternoon class for an hour. And then if you're in the Thursday night class, I'll come in before class begins, and you can talk to me then. This syllabus and everything else we look at tonight is up on Blackboard. As of right now, I'm sitting here, it's Monday night on the 17th. I'm sorry, on the 18th. And when I look at Blackboard, there are no students in any of my labs, which means when you go on Blackboard, you probably do not see this course listed under your courses. So that'll be fixed, I'm sure. And as soon as you get on Blackboard, this will be available. You can download it or you can look at it at any time. In fact, I'll bring up Blackboard and show you that it's there in a minute, or later on, not in a minute. But what is this lab for? All right, so we're talking about the AU-273 Computer-Assisted Mechanisms Lab. And it's diagnosis and repair of computer-controlled automobile operations. And, Chrysler, Ford, General Motors, other domestic as well as various import vehicle systems. And we can't really concentrate on any one make or model. So this is any automobile manufactured for use in the United States fits in this class, and any computer-controlled system fits in this class. When we go through the task list, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but what's not computer-controlled in a car nowadays? Not very much. So you might be dealing with an electronic steering system, tire pressure monitors, suspension, all kinds of body control things, HVAC, which is a separate lab this semester, but a lot of those functions are computer controlled, so there may be overlap with that class. There could be overlap with brakes classes. There's a lot of electrical in here, and that's where actually in the lecture we'll begin as a review of electrical. If you're in this lab, most of you, unless you're repeating this lab for failure or something like that, most of you are also in the lecture, and later on this week, I'll be posting a video for the lecture and for the syllabus for that. When Blackboard is up and running and you're in it, I'll post a little quiz, just a few questions for you to take so that I know that you've read this or you've watched this video. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about what we're talking about here right now. So let's move on down. There is no textbook for this. The library resources, right, is all data. And also, you know, many faculty, the ones teaching Ford and CAP and all that, have access to the, you know, manufacturer dealer connect and things like that. So sometimes we will use those. But our biggest source of information will be all data right now. So when you're done with this course, you will be able to, or should be able to, diagnose and repair automotive computer systems, including powertrain, body control, lighting control, various chassis control systems, and others. Diagnose and repair various network systems, including Society of Automotive Engineers J1850, pulse width modulated, variable pulse width, ISO 9141, ISO 14230, keyword protocol 2000, control area network, CAN, you know, so all kinds of different networks. And what we're going to find is the network wiring it's just wiring. Some of it's a little specialized, twisted pairs and things like that, but that's the easy part. It's wires running from one module to another. Where the differences mostly are is in the software that runs these networks. What kind of signals go over those wires? And honestly, you don't really have to know or be able to interpret those, because the scan tools can, for the most part, just automatically understand all these different languages. So that's going to be more of a theoretical thing we talk about. As far as actually diagnosing a vehicle, most of the time you're not even going to have any idea what kind of network you're working on. So another thing we want to be able to do is retrieve diagnostic trouble codes from various systems. It says here both OBD1 and OBD2. There's really not a whole lot of OBD1 cars around anymore, so mostly OBD2. Read the onboard diagnostic data streams using both manufacturer and aftermarket scan tools, including handheld and PC-based tools. Perform both manual and automated computer system tests per the appropriate diagnostic flow chart. So you'll see that once you get a code, sometimes when you look that code up, it sends you into a diagnostic routine and you just follow step by step. You may be using the scan tool for manual testing, in other words, looking up data points or operating devices with the scan tool, or you may be measuring circuits with the DVOM. You should be able to find and interpret shop manual information for diagnosis and repair, and verify customer concerns and verify repairs. As far as these institutional learning outcomes, I'll let you read this for yourself. Won't really go through that too much, but you know, we have to fit the things that we do with specific outcomes that the college wants to happen. And so here I've listed the things and where they fit in. You know, for example, you need to be able to demonstrate adequate preparation for a career, and these are things within our outcomes that, you know, feed into that particular desired outcome. As far as how we're going to grade this class, student learning will be performed based on a rubric. So here's the rubric, essentially. how are we going to grade you? Well, each week there's a possibility of 10 points. So it's really, each one of these percentages, if you look, 20%, that's really 2 out of the 10 points. Another 2, up to 7, and then 10 points total. And so let's talk about attendance, preparedness, performance, and the lab report. So attendance is pretty simple. You have a possible 2 points. So the grade that I'm going to put on the sign-in sheet for attendance is either going to be a 0, a 1, or a 2. So the 0 is pretty obvious. If you don't show up, then you get a 0. The 1 is for showing up late or leaving early. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to leave early. Let's say that you're in a morning lab, so it starts at 8, goes to 11:20. You come up to me at 10:30 and you say, Bob, I've done the work for the day, the car's fixed, or the lab task is done, or the worksheet is done. All the tools are put away, we're cleaned up, the car's ready to go. Can I leave? Most likely I'm going to say, sure, you can leave. Make sure you sign out. And I will not penalize you for leaving at 10:30 on a class that goes to 11:20. If, on the other hand, 11:20 comes around and I look around and, hey, where did that student go? If you just disappear during the lab, then you're not going to get full credit for attendance. That'll be knocked back to a 1, or possibly even a 0 if you just come sign in and then disappear. So if you want 2 points for attendance, show up on time, stay for the whole lab unless I excuse you. And me excusing you means you've asked me if it's okay to go, and I've told you, yes, you can go. Preparedness, this is what it used to be and how this came into being was we used to require all students to bring, work boots, tools, and safety glasses. And students that showed up without tools, got dinged on this. Students that showed up without safety glasses, maybe dinged on this. Students that showed up without work boots were sent home. What this has become now, since we now have tools there, right? We're no longer grading you on being prepared by bringing your tools. You're still required to have work shoes of some sort. They can be work boots, or they can be the kind of sneakers that are designed for working in a shop. But another thing that we're going to look at is, the whole idea of this 20 points here, or this 2 points, 20%, is, did you show up ready for lab? If you brought a car in, you have to have a current valid insurance card. Current. Can't be expired. If it's expired, it's useless. So before you bring this car in, before you leave the house in the morning, check the insurance card. Check it the day before. Check it a week before. Make sure that, usually you can download one, but if you're spending the first hour of lab either getting an insurance card faxed to you, emailed to you, or having to go online and print it out, you're wasting our time, and I'm not giving you points for preparedness. If you come in and you're going to do a job, and you're going to do the job, but you don't have the parts ahead of time, that's another thing. Let's say that say you bring a car in and you have no idea what's wrong with it, so you need to diagnose it. You diagnose it, you discover what parts you need, and then you have to go get them. That's okay. I can't expect you to see into the future or something like that. So if you need to order parts or run out for parts after a diagnosis, I'm okay with that. But if you show up knowing you're going to do something, and where you should have known what you needed ahead of time, but you show up without it and then want to spend an hour and a half running to the parts store, I'm not giving you points for preparedness there either. So what I expect to give you the 2 points is you show up ready to work, ready to start working on a car right away. So, you have proper attire, you have the vehicle insurance card, you have whatever parts you need if you should be reasonably expected to know you needed them. If you have any questions about this, of course, feel free to ask any of this stuff. Let's move on down here. Performance. So performance is worth 3 points each week, or 30% of your grade. And this is very, subjective, my observation of what you do each week, right? So within reason, students are expected to perform diagnosis and repairs in a professional manner with the quality of work acceptable to a potential employer. So in other words, within reason, we want you to follow the shop manual and not be a hack. No duct tape, no technician's wire, coat hangers, and you're expected to maintain a neat work area, take necessary precautions to ensure the vehicle is not damaged. So that may include fender covers, things like that. Make sure repairs are not done improperly. And if you're not sure as a student, you need to ask. So a lot of these things kind of go together. If you're late, right, or if you're not prepared, you're going to get dinged up here under attendance and preparedness, but it's also going to cost you in this performance category, because how can you're expected to show up and do some work. How can you get full credit for doing work when you spend part of your time either not there or having to get an insurance card or having to get parts you should have known you needed? So it can kind of be a double hit on attendance, preparedness, or attendance and performance, or preparedness and performance. You might get hit on both of those if you show up and don't and you're not ready to work, or you show up late, or you leave early. If you're only there for an hour, I can't give you 3 points for the work you do that day. There's no way. So the last piece of it, the final 30%, or the final 3 points each week, are the lab task sheets. So lab task sheet, let's just take a look at this here. That's not the thing. Hang on. Lab task sheet, here we go. Okay. Most of you have seen this before. It's pretty straightforward, right? Your name, the date that the work was done. So that is always going to be last week, because you're turning it in the week after you've done the work. Okay. Vehicle year, make, model, whose vehicle is it, what scan tool did we use? This is not really difficult information to come up with. So if you just get in the habit of making sure you know this stuff right from the start, it'll be a lot easier to get a good lab report done. So the description of the customer or owner concern, or the reason for bringing the vehicle in. So this could be a symptom, this could be a light that's on, or this could be as simple as saying in here, writing in here that you brought it in order to do a worksheet. And if that's the case, the rest of this doesn't even get filled out. The worksheet just gets stapled to this page here. And then that worksheet, I'll know who you are and what kind of vehicle you worked on here, right? And the only other part, other than, the this information here. The only other thing you're doing is just saying, potentiometer worksheet or temperature sensor worksheet, right? And then you attach that worksheet. If it's a symptom, of course, that's what you're putting here. So in other words, you're just telling me, why is the car in the shop? Down here, there's no particular length that either of these categories, diagnostic tests or repairs completed, should be, because let's face it, on a lot of these computer problems or electronic problems, all of the time is spent in diagnosis, and the repair is some stupid simple thing, taking off one bolt and slapping on a new sensor or something like that. So you might have, this space here might not be big enough for diagnostic tests, and this space here might be way too big for repairs completed. So just adjust accordingly. I want a pretty good detailed idea of how you got to a diagnosis here if you're diagnosing a problem. Like I said, if you're doing a worksheet that I gave you, these tests, this, you're not even filling this out. You're just putting up here, you just might write in temperature. Whoops, that's not it. Sensor worksheet, attached to worksheet, you're done. So this one here, I've had some pretty interesting things written here under results, but this is, what's the status of the vehicle after we're done? So if it's a worksheet, you're not writing anything in here. If you've done a diagnosis, possible results would be that the vehicle's repaired, and the road test was successful or whatever, retest, the code's gone, code didn't come back. The results might be, that the diagnosis is incomplete. You got to bring it back next week because we didn't get to the root of the problem yet. The results might be that you had to order parts. That's frequently the case. You do a diagnosis this week, you do the repair next week. So whatever it is, every week you're doing one of these lab reports. Here's a question I get all the time. Well, Bob, what if I work on more than one car? Do I give you 2 lab reports? You can do that, or you can just put it all on one. You could put 2 lists here under vehicle, year, make, model, owner. You can have 2 descriptions. Vehicle 1, the description was this. Vehicle 2, the description was that. Same with diagnostic tests and repairs. This happens a lot where people work on more than one car during the course of an almost 4-hour lab. The bottom line, what the most important thing you should know, right? I'm not going to save this. Don't save. Most important thing that you should know is that on any given week, the maximum number of points I can give you is 3, 30% of your grade. So you can't give me 3 weeks worth of lab reports or 2 weeks worth of lab reports or 5 weeks worth of lab reports all at once. You have to give me one each week. If you give me 5 lab reports on a random Monday in February, and they're all great lab reports, you know how many points you're going to get for all 5 combined? You're going to get 3 points, or 30% of that day's grade. That would be a real waste. So let's not do that. Once I grade you for the day, and that includes the lab report for that day, that grading for that lab is closed out. So if you didn't give me a lab report, then the most you can get that day is a 7. And if you give me 2 lab reports the following week, still the most you can get is a 10. So that second lab report is just a waste of your time. Don't do it. You might as well hang on to it for another week. So if you really want to just make this easy on yourself, and it is easy, we don't make this really difficult, just every week show up with a lab report, put it under the sign-in sheet. At the end of the lab, I'll look at it and I'll decide to give you 0, 1, 2, or 3 points for it. I will put that in my grading column on the sign-in sheet, and then case closed. We're done with any lab report for that week. Don't bring me 2 at once. Let's talk about attendance. So since this is a lab, I can't give you any credit for a lab you don't show up for. So I just finished telling you we have a total of 10 points each week. 2 for attendance, 2 for preparedness, 3 for performance, 3 for the lab report. That adds up to 10. So 15 weeks in a semester, so that's 150 possible points. And so the grading is really simple. If you get a 7 every week because you never give me any lab reports, you could get a 70 for the semester. But that means you have to do everything else perfect. So I wouldn't try that. If you miss a lab, there's 10 points out of 150 gone. What happens is, and so that'll lower your final grade by about 7%. So you'd be starting, instead of 100, you'd be starting at a 93. Then you'd be starting at an 86 if you miss 2 of them, and going down from there. Typically, if people miss, 3, 4, 5 labs, forget it. You can't pass. Almost all the time, when I have to put an F for final grade, and people ask, Bob, why did you give me an F? All I have to do is look back through the attendance, and what I find is there were maybe 3, 4, 5 labs missed. You don't even have a chance then, right? So attendance is very important. I guess I missed an edit here, so we are going to, whoops. We're going to get rid of this line right here, and I'll have to correct this on Blackboard. But there will be no final cleanup. Due to COVID, the trouble with the final cleanup is that brings all the students into the building at the same time, and we don't want to do that. So you're expected to arrive on time with proper attire, be prepared to work on a project related to the subject of the class for significantly the entire class session. Rubric with standards distributed and discussed on the first day of class. That is right here. This is the rubric that will be used to get up to 10 points. The rest of this really is not my information, but college-wide information. So, you'll have access to read this at your leisure, but students with disabilities for South Campus should contact Fran Moyer in the Counseling Center. We will use Starfish, so occasionally I may put a note in Starfish that could result in a counselor contacting you, and if there's some sort of a problem, but also there are services that are available for help. So you can read through this when this is available on Blackboard. And the code of conduct here, the college assumes students will behave with integrity. So I don't see too much problem, but the biggest problem that I see as far as academic dishonesty, all right, is lab reports that are obviously done by one student and then just turned in by other students as if it was your work. In other words, 2 identical lab reports handed to me with 2 different names on them. So what do I do there? If it happens once, I probably just throw them both in the garbage. So in other words, if you are the one that did the work, but you let somebody else copy it and put their name on it, it's going to cost you 3 points, and they're not going to get the 3 points either. If it's something that I talk to you about and it keeps happening, you can be kicked out of school. So let's not see that happen. Okay. The only other thing I really want to look through here, let me close this down, is the task list and my schedule. So the task list, this is going to be on Blackboard. Well, it is on Blackboard. Once you're put into those courses on Blackboard, you'll be able to see this. So you'll see these are things I came up with that we can do in the class. I have some worksheets. A lot of these are sort of repetitive. It's basically diagnosing things using the various different scan tools that are available out there. So we have, Solus, Modus, laptop, Zeus scanner. We have a few factory sort of scan tools. We've got YTech, we've got Ford IDS, we've got the Volkswagen software, we have the Autel. So it's good to get a little bit of time in with each one. So that's kind of my aim here, is that you try each one of these scan tools, use each one, do the worksheets. And then I did not come up with a complete list here. Diagnose and repair powertrain related problem, anti-lock brake, electronic steering or suspension, some sort of body control thing, or any other system. So let me just put it this way. If the system is an electronic system, it's controlled by a computer, it belongs in this class. So that's not to say that just because you have ABS means that you can do pads and rotors. But if there's an ABS light on, you can certainly diagnose that in here. Just because it has electronic steering doesn't mean you can do an alignment, unless a code from the steering system tells you need an alignment. So in other words, you get the idea. If it's a computer problem, it belongs in this class. I also will allow most electrical problems, even if they're not strictly a computer sort of thing. So that comes into this number 21, other tasks. So if you're not sure, just ask me if you can bring it in. But don't ask me if you can change your tires, or if you can do an alignment, or if you can do brakes, things like that, or an oil change. Those are other classes. The only time we might use a tire machine in this class is if you have a problem with the tire pressure monitor system and you have to replace a sensor or something like that. Obviously, since they're inside the tires, we would have to dismount the tire to get to it. One last thing, just to show you my schedule. So I have computer-assisted mechanisms labs Monday morning, Tuesday morning and afternoon, and Thursday night. I have an AC lab, which a couple of you are actually in, on Monday afternoon. And usually, in other semesters, the lectures have been here on Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon. Since they're online, we don't have them listed at a specific time or on a specific day. But what I'm going to try to do, and I'll make a video and go over the syllabus for the lecture, but just since most of you are in it, I'll just mention it now. I'll try to make sure a new video is out every Thursday. And if I give you a test, it'll show up on Thursday. So I'm going to try to keep kind of to that schedule as if we were meeting in class. And kind of Thursday is going to be lecture day. So if you don't see something, an email by Thursday saying there's a new lecture available, go on Blackboard and look anyhow, because that's the day it should show up. Okay. So that's about it for this week. Next week, I'll actually have to somehow come up with something that's an actual lab that I can kind of demonstrate something for you. And then I'll expect a full lab report on it. And that lab report is how I'll know that you watched and understood the lab video next week. So for right now, you don't need to do a lab report for what we talked about today. I never expect a lab report on the first week. And I don't expect one on the second week because we didn't do anything the first week, which is now. So the third week of the semester, I'll definitely expect a lab report. I think we're back in school then, so you just be bringing it to me. So the way I'll know that you've watched the video next week is I'll probably have you email me one for that instead of bringing it in the following lab. I'll let you know next week. Still working on that. I know I notice I have a few things I have to correct on the syllabus, that thing about cleanup. So I'm going to get to that, repost those so that they're accurate, and hopefully once Blackboard is straightened out, you'll be able to see all that stuff. So until then, have a good week, and I'll have a new video up for next week for the computer assisted mechanism lab where we'll actually do something. See you then.